In this video, I'm going to tell you why insulin doesn't make you fat. If you want to control what you eat, control your body, and control your mind, then click the subscribe button so you never miss a video. For the past 10 years, the prevailing hypothesis has been that insulin makes us fat. The more carbs we eat, the more insulin our pancreas secretes, and then the fatter we get because insulin is this fat storing hormone. While that's true to an extent, that's not the whole story, and I think there's a lot of phobia out there about insulin. Everybody's trying to cut back on carbs, everyone's going keto, everyone's talking about intermittent fasting, carbs are the new boogeyman. In this video, I hope to dispel some of the myths that are out there on insulin. I think this whole insulin thing started when Gary Taubes published that article in the New York Times Magazine. I think it was like 2003, 2004, and he said, what if it was a big fat lie? And he said that the whole diet heart hypothesis that said that dietary cholesterol increased our risks for heart attacks wasn't true, and that was true. That hypothesis failed, and ever since then we've seen this explosion of low carb literature from other dietitians and other scientists and other professors and writers. It has this cult-like following to it. If you think insulin is going to make you fat, and if you think carbs are going to make you fat, then watch this video until the end. My first point is weight loss is about calories, it's not about insulin. I know I just offended like everybody watching this video, but that's the truth. It is about calories, and I'll prove it. Here's my challenge to you. Drink a cup of olive oil a day, eat 12 eggs, eat 2 sticks of butter, and then eat 4 avocados and see what that does to your waistline. I guarantee you, you will lose weight. You don't need insulin to convert dietary fat into stored triglycerides. In fact, the conversion of dietary fat to triglycerides is zero. There's zero energy cost to that. Whereas when you eat carbohydrates, you actually burn a little bit of energy converting the starch and converting that into stored fat. That's why you can eat a little more on high carb diets than on high fat diets. Many people have lost weight simply by tracking their calories. It's really that simple. Imagine if it was all about insulin. You would have to be checking your blood sugar all of the time to make sure you weren't raising your blood sugar. We would never be able to eat carbohydrates. You would never be able to eat large amounts of protein. You would just have to eat a very high fat diet. I know a lot of people who have gone on high fat diets and they have not succeeded. Even the ones who have stuck to it, they feel miserable and they're low on energy and they still have cravings for carbohydrates. If you go around the world, you will see billions of people eating carbs, especially in places like Latin America, poorer countries in Africa, and especially in places like Asia where they eat rice or noodles with every single meal. Why are they not obese? Every civilization over the last 10,000 years is based on some sort of principal grain. Grains are what drove civilization, not high-fat diets. Don't get me started on the Inuit people. What impact have the Inuits had on world history? Yeah, exactly. High-fat diets don't necessarily lead to greater weight loss than low-fat diets. Kevin Hall's study from 2018 showed that the low-fat diet was a wash compared to the low-carb diet. Every lab-controlled experiment has shown that weight gain is directly proportional to the number of calories that are consumed. This isn't rocket science, people. I don't know what kind of experiment we would have to do to show that high-fat diets are not more effective than high-carb diets for weight loss or weight management. Name a single civilization that was based on a high-fat diet. I'm still waiting. There was also a study not too long ago, I think 2012 or 2013, where they took a bunch of rats and they fed them 4 different diets. And the rats that actually ate a 35% sucrose diet, which is super high in sugar by the way, actually had the least liver damage and gained the least amount of weight even when they were overfed. The rats that gained the most weight were the ones that were fed a high sugar and a high fat diet, which is what you would expect. That's what the standard American diet is. It's high in fat and it's high in carbohydrates. The rats that ate the high sucrose diet actually gained less weight than the rats on the high fat diet, which showed greater amounts of liver damage. So much for the high fat diet. Point 3 is that overweight and obese people eat more than their lean counterparts. I know this seems shocking. How could obese people actually be eating more? The problem with these kind of studies is that they're relying on self-reported data, meaning they give logs to these various subjects and they tell them to record what they ate. Well, surprise, surprise, but when they don't rely on self-reported data, they find that obese people are actually consuming more than their lean counterparts. This is exactly what we would expect. Obesity doesn't occur without a caloric surplus. It cannot be done. My next point is look at all the people in the world who eat high carb diets. I know I just mentioned the Asian people, people in South America, Mexico, Africa. Most people in developing countries or third world countries, if you want to be politically incorrect, Eat lots of grains. I remember seeing a study that showed that Kenyan runners and Ethiopian runners ate 70% carbohydrate diets, and their preferred meal was a large bowl of teff, which is a type of grain that's not too common here, but it's common there. Endurance athletes like cyclists and triathletes all eat high carbohydrate diets, Tim Noakes notwithstanding. And what about all the vegans and vegetarians out there? I know lots of vegans and vegetarians who sometimes look emaciated, probably too thin. But the thing is, if they're eating high carb diets, which is usually what vegan diets is, vegan and vegetarian diets are usually high in carbohydrates because you're not eating a lot of animal protein or a lot of dairy. And yet vegans and vegetarians are usually thinner and leaner than their animal eating counterparts. I'm not arguing in favor of vegan or vegetarian diets. I think there are problems with those diets too. But if it's all about carbohydrates and it's all about insulin, how do people on vegetarian and vegan diets lose weight? I know how. It's because they reduce their calories. There was a study by the National Weight Loss Registry. This was back in 2008, 2009, somewhere in that time frame. And they looked at dieters who were successful at maintaining their weight loss. And they looked at the behaviors that they adopted. One of the behaviors was weighing themselves every day. The second one was eating breakfast. And the third one was adopting a low-fat diet. What does this mean? It means weight loss is about moving more and eating a little less. My big problem with this whole insulin hypothesis is that it's actually not very useful. The only thing you can take from it is that you should eat a super high-fat diet, never eat protein, and never eat carbs again. This is not a very sustainable way of eating. It's not very convenient. You're cutting out large amounts of food groups, and you're not going to get all the vitamins and minerals that you need. I'm sure one of you is going to write in the comments, but I've been doing a high-fat diet and I'm still healthy. Well, good for you, but a lot of people aren't healthy on these diets. You see the hits, but you're ignoring the misses. If you're healthier on a high-fat diet, then that's great. I'm proud of you. But the reason why you're healthier is because you reduced your caloric consumption. And you eliminated the foods like crackers, cookies, ice cream that had a lot of carbs and that you were overeating. Once you removed the temptation and the foods that you were overeating, you lost weight and now you feel better. My next point is people can gain weight on high-fat diets. Think about this. If it's all about insulin and all you do is eat fat, how do you ever maintain your weight? What happens to all that fat? How does it get stored into your current body fat? By this logic, you would just lose all your fat. You would never gain any fat because you're not secreting any insulin. Well, the truth is when you eat fat, your body has various ways of converting dietary fat into triglycerides without insulin. Insulin is not the only hormone involved with fat storage and metabolism. There are a bunch of different hormones in the body. There's cholecystokinin, there's polypeptide Y, there's ghrelin, there's leptin, which affects our brain. Insulin plays an important role, but so does our liver, and so do all the cells in our peripheral tissue. Singling out one hormone and saying that this one hormone is causing the obesity crisis is way too simple. If we know anything about human physiology, we know it's not that simple. In general, reject really simplistic arguments like this. They're usually wrong, and they usually don't tell you the whole story. I think this is one of the appeals of the whole insulin hypothesis, is that it is so simple. Insulin makes us fat. How do you reduce insulin? Cut back on carbs and most protein, just eat a high-fat diet. The end. This whole idea has created a cult-like movement, and it's really shocking how addicted people are to this idea. My contention is that the whole keto movement is a fad. 10 years from now, people will be thinking, hey, remember keto and all that stuff about insulin? Oh yeah. My advice is to ignore the fads and stick to tried and true principles. Here's some good advice. Exercise. Eat from all the food groups. Eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're not hungry. The end. The insulin hypothesis only makes things more complicated and more confusing. We don't need to do that. My next point is diabetics. When you have a type 1 or type 2 diabetic, they have to take exogenous insulin, meaning they have to take insulin injections, not insulin that's produced from the pancreas. Now, why did they do this? Because you need insulin. This is my next point. Insulin is crucial for survival. All mammals produce insulin, rats produce insulin, we produce insulin, dogs produce insulin. If insulin is so bad and it's so detrimental to our health, why do we have it in the first place? If we're not designed to consume carbs, why would we develop this hormone designed to shuttle sugar in the blood into the fat cells? The whole point is to regulate homeostasis, meaning your body likes to maintain a natural state. It likes to keep things in order. And when you consume a lot of sugar or a lot of starch, it temporarily raises your blood sugar. That's not a good thing because you have to maintain a normal pH in the blood, which is like 7.2, 7.3, but it's a very narrow band. And the whole point of secreting insulin is to get that into the peripheral tissue, into the cells, and return the blood sugar back to normal. Normal blood sugar is about 70 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. You can buy a glucometer and some test strips and you can measure it. It's preferable to do that in the morning before you've had breakfast. The point is, insulin plays a very critical role and we should be thankful for insulin. Without insulin, we would never be able to consume carbohydrates and we would have a very hard time maintaining normal blood sugar levels. The whole point of insulin is to make sure that you are properly using the energy that you're consuming. This is why a lot of type 2 diabetics actually have higher resting metabolic rates than non-diabetics. They're inefficiently using the energy that they're consuming and they're producing new glucose from the liver and from the tissues when they don't need to be doing that. That's why their blood sugar is so high and that's why they have to take exogenous insulin. Make sense? Eating a diet that consists of about 50% carbohydrates, 30% fat, 15 to 20% protein, that is a typical diet and that's what most people gravitate towards. They take generous portions of starches, they add some animal protein and some fruits and vegetables. There's nothing wrong with that. I understand that some people have unusual cases and they're diabetic and they have certain medical conditions and they need an expert to intervene and help them with dietary interventions. I don't pretend to be one of those experts. I'm speaking to the masses here, and most of us without those medical conditions can be safe and healthy on those kind of diets. You don't need to eliminate all your carbs and limit your carbs to 30 to 40 grams a day to be healthy. If you're having trouble limiting your carbohydrate intake, that's a behavior issue. Don't blame the carbs, blame your behavior. A lot of people get healthy on keto not because they eliminated the carbs, but because they spontaneously started to eat less. They cut out the processed carbs, which are super easy to overeat, and they got healthier. Okay, I hope this video makes you rethink insulin. There's a lot of videos and channels and books on there that tell you that insulin is evil, insulin will make you unhealthy, you need to drastically restrict your carbohydrate intake. That is not true at all. But if you are binge eating, overeating, or you have some bad eating habits that you want to correct, then head to my website, saneaters.com. I have some free training there and I will show you how I stopped binge eating and overeating after 10 years. And if you want to speak with me, there is a link in the description box below. And don't forget to check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. And go eat some carbs.